What is up, fellas sickos? I am Dan Valley coming at you with the one, the only, the certified fantabulous, Mr. Grant Hughes. We are here to report some breaking news. We had no idea that there would be consequences for our actions, and so now we are here to circle back to the 2024 NBA offseason and go through our grades, talk about where we were wrong, where we were right, and to regrade the offseason. We do this every year, Grant. I think this has got to be like the third or fourth time we've gone back and regraded, or at least went back and regraded the offseason. So always a fun exercise. We're starting off with the Eastern Conference, if you can't tell from the title. We will, as notes, quick notes, a C. Everyone gets mad when their team gets a C, and I kind of understand that, but a C is just average grade. Like, relative to what they had at their disposal, what they were trying to do, they got a C. Like, that's totally fine. When you get into Ds and Fs, like, that's where, okay, let's have some debate. And the other note is so we are going to put the transactions that we graded specifically up on the screen. So you saw this last year, and we will talk about anything that happened notably before opening night thereafter. We do these later than a lot of other podcasts, precisely because, for us at least, it makes regrading a lot easier. We don't have to think about all the stuff that we missed. Do you have any other thing to add? Or more importantly, I think everybody missed you. You've been gone for a minute. How are you doing?
I missed everybody. I missed you. We haven't talked in 2 weeks, which seems like impossible. But it's our off-season cadence, I guess, except not yours, because you're going to be doing a million look-aheads, and I'll be there for some of those. I really like doing this every year because I don't know. My memory is so bad that it's just like I want to remember what I was thinking a year ago, especially if we're just way off. Usually those are obvious, but several of these I think were really useful for me to go back and look at, like, okay, why did I think this was a good or bad offseason for this team? And then really, like, ideally we're learning something about our thought processes, and we can take that forward. And it's like, well, okay, I need to be careful about shooting the moon on a particular team for drafting this player or for swinging this deal or what. I don't know. It gives you more sort of data points to look back at and kind of just sort of like fine tune the way you look at off-season grades, I guess.
I went back and listened to some of what we said last year too, and some of the things that I got hung up on for a few of the teams in the East was just really funny. Where it's like, looking back, it's like, why were you splitting hairs over that? We did have, Grant, the release of the Christmas Day schedule as we're recording this. So I feel like we could react to that really quickly. There are 8 Western Conference teams playing on Christmas. What do you make of that?
So that means there are 2 Eastern Conference teams? Is there one East game? Feels like too many.
No, they have to be split up. I'm going to look at the actual schedule now, but that's the chatter, is that everyone's like, that's opening night? No, Christmas Day. Cleveland versus New York. So the first game, and then the Eastern Conference is done.
Those are the ones. Like, I was gonna say, who do you need to see of the Eastern Conference teams? Those are the 2, maybe.
Those are the 2. So would you care to hazard a guess at the West teams that are also playing on Christmas? We'll get to the regrades. I promise.
I'm gonna say the Lakers are probably involved, as are the Clippers, as are the Warriors, as are
the Clippers.
The
are not involved.
What?
The Thunder are involved.
Thunder, Spurs. They're gonna.
Oh, you got it. Smack dab. Thunder Spurs is the second game. Lakers Rockets is the third one.
Oh, Lakers,
the Warriors
Rockets
play the Mavericks in the fourth one. You have not named either of the remaining.
You got to have the Wolves in there, don't you?
You do have the Wolves. Who are they playing?
Why can't I remember? Can I look at a list of Western Conference teams?
You're forgetting an obvious one.
I already said the Thunder. Obviously the Jazz, right? We're going to get the Jazz on there.
Larry Marketing trade showcase.
Who's the obvious team I'm missing?
Denver. Jokic?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, that's pretty obvious.
Professional horse owner, Nikola Jokic.
The best player in the world? Sure. I don't know who wants to see him.
Opening night is all West teams. Oh, my God. It's the 4 West.
Are we going to relegate the East? Is that what we're trending towards? Look, the NBA is very interested in Europe. Are some of the relegation trends from Premier League soccer going to transfer over, and the East just doesn't get to play the West anymore?
That's really bad news for the Reinsdorf if that happens. So we have Rockets Thunder is the first opening night game, and then Warriors Lakers is the second opening night game. So
that's fun.
No East teams there.
Probably gonna watch those.
Yeah, I was about to say I don't really need to see the Lakers. They have Luka and LeBron, so like that they were going to be penciled in there. So No, I don't think any clear shocks, although I would have expected the East to be like a little bit like have an East team play on opening night would have been my guess.
Well, but who should it be? I mean, if you got the Cavs and the Knicks.
Well, I'm saying opening night. I thought there would be
a
East team.
Nah, don't need it.
I'm
gonna use this year. Here's a bit. I'm gonna work on this bit all year. Is where I just dismiss the East no matter what all the time. Nobody's ever made that bit up in the last 25 years of NBA analysis, have they?
I don't think they have. Not at all. No. I mean, you did bring up an issue. Like, who's the third most compelling team in the Eastern Conference aside from the Knicks and Cavs? You pick from the Magic, the Hawks,
Detroit,
the Bucks.
Orlando, Atlanta. I don't know. It's not great. I'll tell you that.
Hell yeah, I love these. Look at that accountability. Yeah, this is what accountability looks like. Tell them, Rome. We should probably get started with that. We're going to go not alphabetically, but by division. So we're going to begin with the Atlanta Hawks anyway. It would be by division.
Also alphabetically.
Are you able to take us through the list of transactions that we graded, sir?
Yeah. So I may or may not read some of them, but the big ones, Zachary Ricochet at number 1. Garrison Matthews got his team option picked up. The big trade, which feels like much longer than a year ago, but Atlanta sent DeJounte Murray to New Orleans for Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance Jr., EJ Liddell, Cody Zeller. That was a sign and trade for 3 years and $11 million, partial guarantees. Got a 2025 first and the less favorable of Milwaukee or New Orleans 2027 first that has top 4 protection. Vit Krejci came back, 4 years, $10 million. We love Vit Krejci around here. EJ Liddell was rerouted to Phoenix for David Roddy. Dominic Barlow, Lundy, and Keaton Wallace got 2-way deals. So this is mainly the Murray trade, the Ricochet pick. I don't know what would have rated. Maybe the Krejci signing, I don't know, knowing us, would have gotten some coverage there.
We did, if you would care to know, we did, in fact, spend at least a full minute on the Vit Krejci signing. So,
and we've done it again now. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I will say we don't like this offseason as much, the last offseason for the Hawks as much as we like this one. That feels fair to say.
And the only thing we missed, so I guess I'll tack on that, was the Jalen Johnson extension came down after the fact. So that would be a part of this regrade, the 5 years, $150 million. That offseason, we weren't thrilled with the DeJounte Murray return. We thought it was kind of like a net even. Like, are the Hawks any better off? And then in hindsight, with the injury, you can't really predict that stuff. And it's not like Atlanta had this great season where they set the world on fire. But when you look at how they're positioned with their assets now, contrasted against how Dyson Daniels played for them, I will say that trade looks way better. The value of that Milwaukee/New Orleans first, just absolutely through the roof. And then to go out and so. Their offseason they're one of the offseasons that in hindsight I think look a lot better though.
For sure.
I think this offseason was better to be clear, but I think they're one of the teams that like had a better offseason in hindsight.
Well, agree. So let's just to get this right. So I forgot that they got the least favorable of the Bucks or Pelicans 2027 first, and then they also got the same thing in 2026, right? For in the draft night deal. So the Hawks have basically shorted 26 and 27 for the Bucks, good bet, and Pelicans, potentially great bet. Like that's, I mean, combined, they maybe shouldn't have been allowed to trade with the Pelicans again. Have we considered that?
Have they do you think that they've kind of it's not the same because they still can't tank, but like they've kind of fully offset not having their own first round picks in 26 and 27 now?
I mean, right, because it's not just like, well, if this one other team falls apart, no, you've doubled your cracks at it. So it's still like we always talk about, the best thing you can have are your own picks, but failing that, this is a pretty good return. So do you want to talk about? I think we've kind of.
The only thing I was going to say is, do you have any? We both were kind of just Zach Ricochet is a C grade because he wasn't the obvious pick, but like we needed to see more. How do you feel about that pick having gone through his rookie season now?
I don't think my opinion's that different. I think, I mean, are there guys that you might rather have? Maybe, but there's not. Do you feel like there's someone from last year's draft class that's like, oh my God, if they'd just taken this guy, it would have been an A? I don't know. Who's that guy?
I don't know who. I mean, like it would. I know Steph Castle won Rookie of the Year, but no, that wouldn't have been an automatic A right now for me. I think I would probably, even if I was doing a redraft right now. I mean, Steph Castle was the better player last year, but I think Ricochet just fits with more teams.
Right.
So
I don't know. It's at least a conversation.
It's a conversation. It didn't hurt their grade. That's for sure. And you could say, like, with this team, knowing they were able to go out and get Kristaps, like, maybe not taking Sarr was the smart decision for them then. So, and I think the only other thing we would need to touch on is the Jalen Johnson contract thoughts, knowing that he's not proven to be the most available player since he's entered their rotation a few years ago.
It moves the grade up for me because it's just a flat $30 million a year, right? It was at 5 for 150, and it just stays flat. I mean, if he's healthy, that is a below market deal. He just wasn't last year, and I think that still moves my grade up, or at least is a contributing factor into me upping their grade. But I think it's fair to say that, like, it's not a definite home run yet, just because we don't know if Johnson's going to stay healthy. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, I think you feel better about the peak of Jalen Johnson on this contract, but he hasn't done anything to sort of dismiss the health concerns. Yeah. So with that, we went from our preview. You want to take them through, so those will pop up on screen for everybody watching, but I gave them a C- and you gave them a C last year. What are we giving them now, Grant?
So you've bumped up to an A-, a bigger jump because you started lower. I went to a B+, so we're not very far apart at all. I just didn't want to quite get into the A range just because, like, I don't know, I feel like their offseason this summer was better, and so I don't want to jump to an A for last year because where do I go for this one?
And it's also, they were another team where it's like, oh, we're not going to pay, so we're not going to use the full breadth of our resources because we don't want to pay the tax. But in hindsight, it's when Jalen Johnson goes down and you're trying to play Ricochet and you have Daniels coming in, like, was that the right decision? So that's what's tough, is because we, like, those teams, and we'll talk a lot about this with the Orlando Magic, where it's like you thought that they just didn't want to spend at that point. So, but Dyson Daniels, neither of us were as high. Like, we didn't expect anything we saw from him. And I know he was doing a lot of the things he did in New Orleans, but he got more playing time.
Right.
And, like, he did showcase some of the stuff that he's able to do on the offensive end.
Yeah. No, great offseason for the Hawks in hindsight.
Our next team up is the Charlotte Hornets. I'll take us through them. They hired Charles Lee as head coach, drafted Tijan Salon at number 6, drafted KJ Simpson at number 42. They acquired Grant's favorite trade of the offseason, Josh Green, Reggie Jackson, who they ended up waiving. They got a bunch of second-round picks as part of that deal. They re-signed Miles Bridges for 3 years and $75 million. Salary declines year over year. They acquired Devontae Graham. He had $2.85 million guaranteed. And New Orleans is 25 second to get that done from the Spurs. And they signed Taj Gibson to a 1-year minimum because Taj Gibson is everything to anyone. They signed Seth Curry to a minimum deal as well. How are you feeling about their offseason in hindsight?
So as I looked back on this, I mean, there's just kind of a lot of nothing moves. But we've lauded the Hornets' kind of big picture thinking and hiring Charles Lee. I think we like that. The Salon pick feels like a miss just because he was so bad, but he's also one of the youngest players in the class. I don't think we can, I mean, this will come up a lot, I think, insofar as we talk about regrading draft picks, especially the high lottery guys who are all young. At the bottom there, Moussa Diabate to a 2-way. He turned out to
we like him
matter as an offensive.
Was he their starting center next season, probably? So.
Yeah. I forgot. I'm looking now at the sheet. So we both kind of liked, or mostly liked, their offseason. I think probably the Salon rough rookie year and like Josh Green, earmuffs everybody. Josh Green didn't look like he was going to do. He's maybe not going to matter. So other than that, like, I don't know. There's not a lot of needle moving happening here in hindsight.
No, the Salon pick, I just think maybe he turns out to be a fine NBA player one day, and you noted the youth, but, like, I don't know. You look at some like Donovan Clingan on this team, Zach Edey on this team, Modest Buzelis on this team. There's Khalil Ware on this team. There's like too many other guys that I'm more intrigued by than Salon. So I dinged them pretty heavily when we were going through and I didn't like the Josh Green trade to begin with. We were both kind of net neutral on the Miles Bridges deal. I'm just sort of lower on him as an impact player now. It's still not a detrimental contract, but I don't know. Like, Miles Bridges is not a very efficient scorer. Like Tom Ziller kind of pointed it out for Good Morning Let's Basketball, that he'll get you 20 points per game, but it's not going to be super efficient. Isn't going to generate his shot at like a super high level. He can be moved around on defense, but he's not what you would call an impact defender. I do appreciate their overall direction, but when I was looking at the list of transactions, then went back and looked at the grade that I gave them, I was surprised that I gave them such a high grade last offseason.
Yeah, I wonder, what do you think the driving factor was? That just they didn't do any like let's try to win 41 games, like short-term chasing stuff. We were pretty like, that was a pretty fresh approach for Charlotte to not do that. So I can imagine that we were big on that. I didn't listen back, but that's got to be a huge factor, because you want to jump to the grades here just so we can get the visual
and that
up?
was kind of the logic too, which is like, like they didn't do anything stupid, and so it's like, were they being graded on a weird curve? But if the Salon pick, if like, maybe he still pans out, but what's the percentage chance that we look back and say, oh, it was a good decision to take him at number 6?
Yeah, it seems very low. I mean, he is someone that seems so far away. That's not to say he can't get to whatever he's going to get to, but like, we might not know what he's going to be, and the Hornets will be like trying to negotiate his rookie extension. Like, it might take that long to where it's like, okay, so maybe he'll be good for somebody else, because like, I don't know. I never really understood the theory of Salon. Like, what did they see in him versus some of the more known commodities? But whatever, they reached. You had a B+ for them this time last year. I had a B-, similar range. You dropped them down to a D. I went D+. It's just like what we talked about. The Salon pick feels like a miss, with all the caveats we should attach to that. And there's just nothing else here that I don't know. You can't point to anything they did last summer talking about Charlotte and say, boy, that really set them up to do X, Y, or Z. Like, it didn't. You know, we like what they're doing in general. I want to reemphasize that, but it's just last offseason didn't really accomplish much.
Our next team in the Southeast Division is the Miami Heat. Do you want to take us through them?
Yeah, so they drafted the aforementioned Khalil Ware at number 15, looking like a pretty solid pick at that spot. Josh Richardson picked up his $3.1 million option. Kevin Love signed for 2 years and $8 million. Thomas Bryant got a year at the minimum, did not finish the season on the team. Traded the number 43 pick to Atlanta for number 44, which is Pelle Larsson. Signed him for 3 years and $5.4 million. The first 2 seasons are guaranteed on that deal. Alec Burks got a 1-year deal for the minimum. Haywood Highsmith, who lasted a while into free agency, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
2 years, $11 million. That's a hell of a deal. Signed Bam Adebayo to 3 years, $165 million. That keeps him on the books through 28-29, which is a player option. Signed Josh Christopher and Keyshawn Johnson to 2-way contracts. So, Dan, the highlights here are pretty clearly Ware. I cannot have professed to know very much about Larson at the time we did the grades, but I do kind of like him as a rotation guy going forward. The Highsmith deal was really good. Adebayo, that's just the going rate for someone like him. Even with his down year, I'm like, I don't feel like that's a bad contract. I mean, do you like, how badly would Bam have had to have played this past year for that to be a questionable deal?
Well, do you know what we dinged them for in the grades last year was why didn't they wait an extra summer so they could get him on the books for longer?
No.
Because this was like Adebayo friendly. And now I come away from this thinking, I don't think it was a bad move, but I don't love the contract as much. Like, it's all the other stuff that's doing the lifting for me. Is I've watched a lot of Khalil Ware lately from Summer League and from his rookie season. I can't confess, there's a part of me that still doesn't understand the intrigue with him. I think that there's a real chance that he just never becomes a really good shooter. And then you kind of look at it, it's like, oh, he might have some highlights on defense, but is he going to be this high-level impact defender? But I also just, when the jumpers go in, or you look at his physical tools that he has with the ball in his hands or when he's by the basket, to get him at number 15 is a big deal. I love Pelle Larsson. I think that is, when you look at, yes, they have Norman Powell, Tyler Hero. They just drafted Yakachionis. I think that they should, I'm not saying they should start Pelle Larsson, but like that dude needs to play. They need to put the ball in his hands because he will make things happen. The rim pressure, the foul drawing, to get him at number 43. You mentioned the Highsmith deal. He's out 8 to 10 weeks. Just we found out today he had knee surgery, I think it was, or just a surgery. I like had to stop myself from bumping them up into like an A- range because they had such a blah season with when you factor in the Jimmy Butler stuff. But when you look at all these other moves in hindsight, they didn't make a bad move last offseason.
No, not really. I don't know what would you say the worst move was? Like paying Kevin Love
not
anything,
trading Jimmy Butler? Was that the worst move? Like letting that drag out?
Yeah, that's a good opportunity to talk about. That's one of the challenges here is like we do try to consider the roads not taken and like what might have been possible for these teams as we're grading them, but like so do you think, I guess, that the Jimmy Butler trade like are you actually going to ding them because they didn't trade Jimmy Butler before the season or didn't resolve that situation sooner? Like, I could understand if you were going to do that, but I don't know if I could get there.
I didn't. I mean, we both gave them. We can get to the grades that we gave them for everything. We didn't miss any like huge transactions. They picked up some team options afterwards for Jovic and Jaquez. We both gave them a B, and we're bumping them up too. I gave them a B plus, but I'm a big Larson guy. Spoiler alert. And you gave them a B. Or could you? Could I actually ask you, because I think that you're a little higher? Like, can you explain to me what peak Khalil Ware would look like? Like, what is the best case outcome for Khalil Ware?
Yeah, I don't know. The shot is really kind of. The shot and just like the defensive awareness, I think, are the two things that you would really need to see. And like, the peak version of him, if the 3-point shot goes and he becomes like a quality, like you can anchor a good defense as a center, especially alongside Adebayo, whose shot has always kind of limited him. Like, who is that? Are we talking about like a Miles Turner type with like more vertical athleticism? Like, yeah, you're asking what the peak version of him is. It's very intriguing. I don't know what's his like median outcome, 3 years down the road. It's hard to say. Like there's been no shortage of really athletic big guys that we've said, well, if he could just get the 3-pointer to fall, like then he's really something, and it doesn't happen. Like I don't know, is he? It's too early to say. I'm still intrigued by him, but I'm not gonna like try to talk you off of what sounds like a little bit of skepticism.
Does it feel weird to bump up the grade? You stayed flat, which I think is fair. Is it weird that I bumped up a grade of a team that wasn't trying? Like, they were clearly trying to still remain competitive now, and they ended up winning 37 games last year. And you can't sit there and say, like, they couldn't see the Jimmy Butler situation coming. No, everybody saw the Jimmy Butler situation coming.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I didn't see enough that was out. Like, I think we probably did this after Summer League, and Ware had some like intriguing flashes then. And I think it's fair to say that he's basically had a rookie year full of intriguing flashes and like maybe not a lot of actual substantive production. So I just didn't really feel like I needed to move it too much. But I can understand why you went up. The Ware
I'm saying,
pick in that draft looks pretty good.
I just feel like the optics look so weird of it. Like, Miami won 37 games, and it was partly like a byproduct of their offseason, but I don't know what else they were supposed to do within reason aside from, do you think that moving Butler over the summer, because there's theoretically more time left on his deal and hasn't been suspended by the team yet when we were doing this, could he have gotten you, like, I'll say materially more value at that time?
Don't you think? I mean, like you would have gotten more for him had you traded him. Like, had you kept all this stuff quiet, if that's possible with Butler and Pat Riley, and then moved him, before it like dragged into the season with suspension and stuff. I'm pretty confident that you would have gotten a lot more than they ultimately got.
We're wrapping up the Southeast Division. Oh, no, we have two more teams left. I apologize to the Washington Wizards, apparently. We are on to the Orlando Magic. They drafted Tristan da Silva at number 18. They drafted Antonio Reeves at number 47. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Was that the first move? Like, big move out of the gate in free agency, right, for anyone? 3 years, $66 million with a player option in year 3. Goga Batadze, 3 years, $25 million on a declining scale. Gary Harris, 2 years, $15 million on a team option that was since declined. Jonathan Isaac, renegotiate and extend, 5 years, $84 million. Average annual value of 16.8. Salary declines. Mo Wagner, 2 years, $22 million. Flat rate, had a team option. They declined it, brought him back. He had that ACL injury. Franz Wagner signed his extension before this. It ended up being... it was projected for 5 years without the All-NBA language of 224.2. I think it ends up being like 5 years, 222.4 or whatever. It's a little bit less now. But he got the 5 years, no options. They brought in Corey Joseph, 2 years at the minimum. That had a team option. He's no longer there, at least as of now. So, Grant, how are you feeling about the thing we missed? I'm sorry, this is a team we missed one thing because we graded before it happened. Two things. Jalen Suggs, 5 years, $150 million extension. And then that freaking Wendell Carter Jr. extension, which I get that he's coming off a bad year, but just objectively speaking, having him at, what was his extension for? It was 4 years and whatever his
60?
extension. Yeah, like that's just 4 years, $58.7 million. Or 3 years, $58.7, excuse me. How are you feeling about their offseason in hindsight?
What a weird time capsule this one is to go back. Because so as we're going down the transactions in front of us here, I kind of like almost all of them, right? Like I spent the year trying to talk myself into De Silva. The ball just didn't go in enough, but I like that player type. I always kind of have the bigger wing forward that seems like he can pass and like that kind of thing. Didn't really ultimately have a real productive year. The KCP thing, we were like, great, love it. That's awesome. They went and got a guy who could make threes. I mean, even like the Harris deal, the Isaac deal, the Bitadze deal, those are all totally fine. Throw in Carter as well. As I look back, I did not grade this offseason highly. I gave it a below average mark, and I gotta believe it's because I didn't like the Wagner deal. I wasn't sure he was good enough. I think I'm just assuming this is what I said because I can't remember.
That was exactly what we talked about. So yes,
okay,
that's it.
Didn't love that. And then also, I could imagine the kind of the criticism that we really landed on as the year progressed was like KCP was just clearly not enough. KCP had a terrible year, but like it turned out like that wasn't actually the solve, even though injuries really were what derailed the season for them. So I think, I don't know, I was surprised I graded it as low as I did because in isolation, I think a lot of these transactions are like, yeah, that seems pretty good, right? Like you were higher on them. So maybe for comparison's sake, what did you love the most, if you can remember, and what, like, I don't know, what did you not like?
I thought KCP was going to be better. I liked Tristan Da Silva. I thought also that I was probably a little bit higher on Franz Wagner at the moment than you were, and I saw no options. Like, that's pretty cool.
Right.
That's like a deal where I'm wondering, should they have negotiated harder on that? Like, should they have done, like we've seen teams, like the Rockets always seem to negotiate with their restricted free agents when you look at Alperen Sengun, or soon-to-be restricted free agents, Alperen Sengun, Jabari Smith. That's like kind of a sticking point for me. I think the Jalen Suggs, I know he got injured. That extension hasn't. I thought that was fine. I think the Wendell Carter Jr. extension is mostly good. The thing that we both had trouble wrapping our heads around is this is a team that had the resources to do a lot more. And now they've gone and they've had the summer that I think you and I would have campaigned for them to have last year. And so we dinged them for that. And it's what also is tough about this is because, okay, we know that they got injured and then that they went ahead and had this summer. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, they gave up a lot for Desmond Bane, but it was like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was in that deal. So it's not like they're still stuck with him either. I still came away thinking, yes, I like this offseason overall for them, but that doesn't change that I think they were good enough in a vacuum in that moment to have more aggressively addressed the needs that we all knew they needed to address, and they just didn't.
Yep, I think, and so we both dropped their grade, and I think that's the main reason is that it's hard to say this because of the injuries, but they kind of burned a season. You know, they kind of wasted a season when their two best players were still pretty cheap. Really, their three best players were pretty cheap because none of those extensions had kicked in. And
Tyus
really,
Jones was available last summer too. Is the other thing?
Like, yeah, like so. I think like we can agree that the Magic's future is we're higher on the Magic's future today than we were a year ago. But their grade drops because they sort of like just took a year for no reason to realize like the swing needs to happen. Like maybe Desmond Bane wasn't available last summer, but like somebody would have been if you're putting 5 first-round assets on the table. Like that's gonna shake loose some like real upgrades if that's what you're after. As I'm talking about it now, I can remember. I bet I made the case that Orlando believes in its organic growth process, and so that's why it's kind of defensible for them not to swing super big, but they just burned a year finding out that like you actually do need to just go get talent.
And it's like you said at the top, like Tristan Da Silva having to step in and be a starter for a hot minute, that has value, but it's also some of the things we talked about too were, if they're not going to go get what we consider a caps lock shooter, it's that they really must be prepared to believe in or uncork Jet Howard. And no, they weren't.
Right.
And so it's just like, and we also, one of the things he says, like, they will do, this isn't part of the grade, but they'll do something by the trade deadline. Now, injuries maybe force their hand, but I'm kind of the mind that they probably wouldn't have done anything. So really good team. I don't know how to square it, but they had their offseason just in hindsight was not like the Franz Wagner extension. I think if you think the Franz Wagner extension looks better than it did last offseason, I would just be curious to know what the case is. Is it because that he was I mean, I had him 4th on my MVP ballot.
If you think the Franz Wagner extension is better now than you did a year ago, then you stopped watching basketball in like mid-November, or like maybe late November. And you just didn't. You only saw that when he was a top 5 MVP guy, and then you did not see the rest of the year.
Are we ready to wrap up the Southeast Division for real now with the Wizards, sir?
Yes, sir. Let's see. They hired Brian Keefe as a full-time head coach. He had the interim tag prior to that, I think. Alex Sarr was their pick at number 2. Kind of an interesting one here. Traded Denny Avdia for Malcolm Brogdon, the pick that became Bub Carrington, or maybe the pick had already become Bub Carrington. Either way, and a 2029 first, the second most favorable of Portland, Boston, and Milwaukee. Sent Dylan Jones, who was number 26, and Melvin Ajinça, who's number 51, for Keyshawn George, like that. Rashawn Holmes re-signed for 2 years and $25.9 million. That's after he declined a $12.9 million player option. He is now playing in where he signed overseas, can't remember where, but only $250K of that second year was guaranteed. That's why he's not in the NBA right now. Got Jonas Valanciunas for 3 years and $30 million. That happened via sign and trade. Tristan Vukcevic got a two-way. Sadiq Bey, who was injured at the time, 3 years, $19 million, had $1 million in unlikely incentives. Interesting tidbit I learned today. You know, there's no incentives in any of the contracts signed this offseason.
They all count against the apron now, so there's no incentive to have those. Like, the stupid ones. What was the one that was used as the example? If like
Tyler Hero, DPOY.
Yeah, DPOY.
Lastly, Anthony Gill, 2 years, $4.8 million. That was fully guaranteed. So, go ahead.
I was going to say Sadiq Bey never playing a game for the Wizards despite signing with them last summer.
But they knew that, though, right? I mean, he was just, I don't know. That's a weird.
And also,
number.
they traded Dylan Jones just to end up getting Dylan Jones like this summer from the Thunder. It's really funny.
I mean, the big ones here are Sarr and the Avdia trade. Other than that, I mean, I guess Valanciunas, but even at the time when that happened, we were just like, all right, I guess just to have like a big adult next to Sarr was the thinking, which fine, but he didn't finish the year there.
Well, they beat out remember LeBron took less so they could sign Valanciunas, and then he signed with the Wizards. That's a big deal, Grant.
I can't wait to do the West grade so we can really just pump up the Lakers for getting LeBron to take less. What a win. Yeah, so I'm looking, and now I got to scroll down and see because I can't remember what we thought about them. All right, we were mostly favorable here.
Right, and we didn't miss anything big. I think you hit on the 2 points. The Sarr pick, I think I'm just where I'm at this season. Like, yeah, there's efficiency concerns. Can he get stronger, do better finishing through contact? Passing was way better than I expected. Had some stretches where there was a lot of defensive playmaking, hitting threes. I'm fine with that. I think you could make the case that had they had the number 1 pick, they could have taken him. Should have taken him.
Probably a higher ceiling than Risache, right? Like, I mean, just
for sure,
lower floor, but higher ceiling.
Higher ceiling than Steph Castle, right? No, is that he's ceiling?
Maybe.
Well, I guess if you're saying if Steph Castle, like the jumper comes along, that's fair. That's fair.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, no, totally defensible pick. And I think it's like we don't love Sarr. It's just like in this draft, that's no issue. That's fine. Take that guy if that's who you like.
I did pump up the Rashawn Holmes mode of operations a little too much in hindsight. They ended up doing nothing with like him having. I was like, oh, they're going to do some. They didn't need to, so they did a bunch of other good stuff. I think the one that I struggled with, and I struggled with this in real time. My words verbatim was, I hate this deal for both teams, or I don't understand it for both teams.
The Avdia one you're talking.
The
about.
Avdia one, excuse me. I now feel worse about it for the Wizards. I like Bub Carrington. That first round pick has some upside. But when you look at, I think the biggest justification was Avdia's value will never be as high as it is right then. That clearly wasn't true.
Yeah.
And then, he's on an extension. He's on a deal. He will never extend off. So the Wizards won't be ready to be competitive. That still might ring true, except they're going to have like $2 trillion in cap space next summer. I think I'd rather eat into like 15 or 16 million of that, still have Avdia. And then if you're trying to be good, I don't know. For me right now, it would come down to, well, what are they going to do with that 29 first-round pick, like if they trade it? Or is Bub Carrington going to have kind of a second, like does he get to the rim more, draw some fouls or something? I'm not saying it's by far not the worst trade I've ever seen, but I am a little bit lower on the Avdia trade for the Wizards than I was last summer.
Yeah, it was a tricky one because it's not like Avdia was 29, like then it's like, sure, with the timeline thing, it doesn't make sense. Get Carrington in there. It's just Avdia was, again, we'll talk more when we get to the Portland offseason, I'm sure, but like he was really good, like for the last half or third of the season. It was fine all year, but like looked like just I don't want to get like too hyperbolic. Maybe not an all-star, but like if he played at that level for a whole season, we would talk about him. We would discuss him potentially at that level.
Like we did Norman Powell kind of leading into the All-Star break last year.
And with Carrington just isn't as good as Avdia, and like if Carrington plays at a level like equal to what Avdia did the second half of last season at any point, Carrington's like a very good starter. And so that's kind of, he hasn't been anything close to that yet. And so until that happens, it's gonna, and that 29 pick is so distant that like, who knows? You will have to say that the Wizards lost that trade. I think it's not catastrophic because whatever, you got a promising rookie point guard out of it, but like Avdia just became way better, I think, than Washington banked on.
This is interesting, and it'll change year over year, but that pick they got, which is the second most favorable from Portland, Boston, or Milwaukee in 2029, does that pick look better this year? Just with everything going on in Boston?
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, definitely. Just because of Boston alone. Boston's future seemed like what could possibly go wrong with this team over the next half decade last year to like everybody's gone now.
Right.
So yeah, that gives it more upside. I mean, Portland we think is kind of a riser, so that doesn't help. Milwaukee, we probably had similar feelings about the downside for them. So yeah, I don't know. If you had to guess, that pick is probably it's probably not in the lottery, but maybe. And it's not going to have like top 10 upside, I wouldn't imagine.
No. So it's still one of those TBD things, but I'm probably a little bit lower on it. Suffice it to say, though, we still ended up like grading their offseason pretty highly. I went from a B+ to a B. You went from a B+ to a C. So what was that? What did it for you? What was the driving
Avdia
force?
A little bit. I think that it was mainly that, and then not doing anything with the Holmes contract. I think I felt in looking back at it that the B+ was a little generous at the time, and so I really maybe overdropped it, but still give him an average offseason. I think maybe a year from now, the Avdia Carrington trade gets you up into above average territory.
It will not shock you to know that they did turn Jonas Valanciunas into 2 seconds and a trade exception, though, because the Wizards might have Fred Katz pointed this out. They might have set the NBA record like over the last decade for the amount of trade exceptions created.
They're exceptional.
We're out of the Southeast Division. We're headed into the Atlantic Division to talk about. I have to assign value to someone. Your Boston Celtics, Grant. They drafted Baylor Shireman at number 30. They drafted Anton Watson at number 54, signed him to an Exhibit 10. Luke Cornett got a 1-year minimum. Xavier Tillman got 2-year minimum, fully guaranteed. Namus Keita got 3 years, $7.2 million. Only the first season was fully guaranteed. Derek White signed a 4-year, $125.8 million extension. $118 million was guaranteed. The final year is a player option. Jason Tatum, 5 years, $314.8 million. It was a 5-year supermax. The value ended up actually changing. Player option on that final season. Sam Hauser got 4 years and $45 million, fully guaranteed. And they signed J.D. Davidson as well and Drew Peterson to two-ways at the time of the grades. This was another team where we did not miss anything substantial, but I think there are going to be a lot of people that are just going to say, like, oh, like, how are you just not going to slam them now because Jason Tatum got injured? This wasn't Jaylen Brown getting the supermax. It wasn't a debate about Jason Tatum. Every single team in the NBA would have given Jason Tatum that contract, right?
Yeah, easy, like no question. So yeah, I mean the big items like the Derek White deal is a great deal. He's still on the team. That's how good it is because they've traded everything else. And the Tatum deal, like, I mean, really. So we, just to spoil it, like we started in the A range and we stayed there. And I think maybe there's a conversation to be had about like, well, shouldn't we care about the results, which is that the Celtics seem like fucked is a strong term, but like they're not on sound footing right now. Like it is very possible that they just can never build a contender around a healthy Tatum again, which is just like unthinkable a year ago, but here we are. So shouldn't their grades be like way down because the Celtics' future is so much murkier than it used to be? Like, I think really the fact that they aren't is just us saying like they're sort of like, it's like when you in contract law there's like force majeure, which is like some act of God like intercedes, right, and like we're not gonna hold that against you. That's kind of where I'm at on this. It's like, I don't know, he tore his Achilles. Like, what do you want? They might have kept the team together. Who knows if that hadn't happened.
I stuck with an A just because I think the Sam Hauser extension probably looks even better I think so. The Derek White deal, yeah, they'll go through his age 34 season, but I think he's weirdly divisive when it comes to, well, I'll say this. He's weirdly divisive when it comes to talking about like trades or player value. I think when you're talking about his on-court value, some people neglect to mention that, okay, like, no, he's in the perfect ecosystem, or was until this point. So he's not, yes, he was a borderline all-star. I don't know if Derek White's going to be as good next season when Jason Tatum's not there. He shot like, with both Jason Tatum and or Jaylen Brown off the court, he still hit like 40% of his three-pointers over the past couple seasons. It's just going to be different now. With like Kristaps Porzingis not being there, you're still going to have the floor spacing element at center, and you will because Chris Boucher exists and he's going to be a Hall of Famer. But but then you talk about trades, and it's be like, well, maybe if we give like a protected first-round pick, we get Derek White from the Celtics. And the answer is no, you would need to give a few first-round picks to get Derek White. So I didn't realize how much of a disconnect there was, and I actually get it in the sense that it could be hard to evaluate players in his situation where he looks like a borderline star, but now we're going to kind of find out, ripping him out of the most ideal possible ecosystem, what will he look like this year? Because he's not, look, he can do some creative stuff with the ball, but he's not, let's have him run our entire, you kind of feel the same way about Jaylen Brown, although you might feel better about, I think as a passer, you feel better about Derek White. As a from-scratch shot creator, you're probably feeling better about Jaylen Brown.
I would. I just think. I think the reason Derek White is so valuable is because you know for sure that he can be a huge part and a starter on a really good team. Like we know that. Like his game, I would rather have that guy where it's like, I'm not sure what he does on an average team. And is he even useful on a bad team? I'd rather have the guy that like, I have questions about how he perform in lower stakes. And whereas I know I've seen like, and his game just obviously makes sense in like the highest leverage situations, like the biggest games against any opponent. Like you don't like play Derek White off the floor, like really, but like, so I don't understand that. I guess like, yeah, if you're the Chicago Bulls, like Derek White ain't for you. Like he's not gonna, that's not for him. But like the flip side of Derek White is like, the good stats, bad team guy. Like, I don't want that guy. Like, I don't want the guy that he's getting you 20 wherever he is. Who cares? Who wants that guy? That's Cam Thomas. Like, nobody's interested. Like, so give me Derek White at that number and plenty more, and I'm fine with it. So you I don't know if you said this already, started at an A, stayed there. I went from A to A- just because, I don't know, I felt like I had to acknowledge how shitty everything became in Boston.
Jason Tatum gets that injury, but he's Supermax eligible right now. Would they still give it to him?
I mean, isn't that probably? I think. But that's always you hear that all the time about like, oh, if Giannis tore his Achilles tomorrow and he was a free agent, he'd get the max, or like you insert superstar X. Would have been an interesting test case, but I think so. Don't you think so?
I think they would have. I mean, for his sake, I'm happy he didn't get injured right before heading into an extension-eligible summer. But I think they still would have given it to him. That made me feel better about giving them an A, because it's just like that just reinforces how much of a no-brainer that decision was.
And I know this is like stupid logic, and this is the last thing I'll say. But like he already has earned that money because he was the best player on a championship team, and like just think of it as retroactive. Like,
yes, I want back pay for some of our I would like some back pay as well. Before you go through this next team, which is it's the Brooklyn Nets. Never mind. I'm going to have the Knicks, who have 2 pages, and we still didn't grade their entire offseason when it happened. I'd just like to point that
out. So the Nets hired Jordi Fernandez as head coach, who presided over a ridiculous stretch of overachievement, and traded. This is a big one. They traded Mikal Bridges and some other guys. I'll just list them: Keita Bates-Diop, Juan Vallée, and a 2026 second for Bojan Bogdanovic, Shake Milton, who it was part of a sign and trade. He got 3 years and $9.2 million. Only the first year is guaranteed. Mamadi Diakite, and also got New York's 2025 first, 2025 second, Milwaukee's 25 first, top 4 protected, the Knicks 27 first, the Knicks 28 first, which is a swap, the Knicks 29 first, and the Knicks 2031 first. That's all the picks. Then they also traded, talking about Brooklyn now, a 2025 first round swap, the lesser of Houston or Oklahoma City, for Phoenix's 2027 first. This is all, I can't even remember how all this worked. Do you remember how the various first swaps and trades worked out?
So they got the Suns 2027 swap, lesser of Houston or OKC for Phoenix. That was in 2025. That's what they traded. They traded the
Okay.
Suns' 2027 first. Then they traded the 2029 first, which is the more favorable of Phoenix or Dallas. But then they also traded the swap of the less favorable. So Houston would have the ability to get both of those first, technically. If they
Right.
want to
Okay.
or
This
something.
is the Houston thing. Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And they also traded Diakite, I just mentioned, for Zaire Williams and Dallas's 2032nd. They signed Nick Claxton. Forgot about this. 4 years, $100 million. Then Trendon Watford signed the qualifying offer. Keon Johnson got 2 years at the minimum with only $250K guaranteed. Very busy offseason, highlighted by the Bridges trade and that the trade that I could not articulate. Thank you for handling that. Involving Suns and Houston picks, I guess. So, Dan, this was an offseason where Brooklyn was clearly rebuilding. And so that's kind of a different sort of set of criteria to evaluate than we've had so far, because we haven't really had like a teardown operation quite yet. I don't think.
Yeah.
I guess Washington's close. But we loved this offseason. The Bridges trade alone is just like, whatever you think about the Bane trade from Memphis's perspective this summer, it's kind of like the Bridges, as far as like you just have to say yes with all that stuff on the table. The Bridges one is very much that. And I don't really feel like my opinion has changed all that much. Like, it's not like they didn't sign. I mean, well, let's put it this way. Which of the major transactions, I guess, which is really just hiring Fernandez, trading Bridges, signing Claxton, and then the Houston OKC thing, which of those do you like least, looking at them today?
I think you could say getting their own pick back, because look at what it turned into. They ended up at number 8, and you would expect them to tank harder, but it's tough to square that away because you didn't look at their roster and say, oh, they're too good to tank. It was this team, even when they had Dennis Schroeder, and Dorian Finney-Smith, very clearly overachieved. And
Sure.
they also pulled the ripcord before the trade deadline by trading Dennis Schroeder and Dorian Finney-Smith. So I think it might prove that like Jordy Fernandez is because he did a bunch of stuff on offense, and then they make these trades. They played some more aggressive defense. But it's fair to look back and say, okay, if you were trading for your own pick, you probably should have tanked. Like, Cooper Flag was at stake. You probably should have figured out a way to tank harder out the gate. But they still also got the rights to their own pick in 2026 back, which is super important, especially because it seems they kept all 5 of the first round picks that they had, at least as of now. So they're going to have a ton of young guys playing. I'm still pretty high on this offseason, but it's just, it loses a little luster because at the time it was, their own first round pick that's the number 1 pick. Like, if you're Houston, that trade looks a lot better for you now. I feel like that the Nets, you ended up with the number 10 pick anyway, which you traded for Kevin Durant, and then Brooklyn ended up at number 8.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, so the takeaway on that is like kind of positive in itself, because what it amounts to is the coach you hired, I guess, was so good at motivation and stuff, and like tactically, that like you couldn't tank as hard as you wanted to. So like, how do you evaluate that? I was wondering if you were going to say the Claxton deal, because I don't know how I feel about that now. It's like $25 million a year on average is not a crazy number. I think he's definitely a starting caliber center. I don't know where I would rank him among starting centers. It's probably not in the top half, and if it is, it's like right around there. So that might be a little much for him. I guess maybe the other way to look at it is he tradable for positive value on that number? Maybe, possibly. So that is all to say, we both had them at an A+, and I think it was very much motivated by getting their own picks back, which was still just, yes, great process. We both bumped them down just a touch, and for me it was because of Claxton and because they didn't quite like maximize the value of that pick that they got back.
Do you think, in hindsight, we'll get into this with the Knicks, but for the Nets, does the Mikal Bridges trade look better, the same? It doesn't look worse.
Well, for it to look better, you would just have to like the upside of those Knicks picks a little more. Is that the thing?
Yeah, that's basically it. Well, no, you could also point to, had they waited and tried to trade him this summer, they are getting so much less than the Knicks gave up to get him now.
That's right. I think it cannot look worse, because there's just no scenario where they get more, but at any point past or future, for Bridges than they got when they traded him. So I mean, it can't look worse.
All right, the New York Knicks are up. This is going to take a minute, so everybody just settle in, grab a cup of coffee, or well, listen to us still. We're getting a cup of coffee. They signed Tom Thibodeau to a 3-year extension. Interesting.
Tips forever.
They drafted Macomb Dadier at number 25. They turned number 24, Keyshawn George, that's our guy, into 4 seconds, and Ariel Huckporty, who was number 58, turned number 38, AJ Mitchell, into Kevin McCullough Jr., still interesting, and Boston's 2028 second-round pick. They traded 3 seconds, including their own in 2030, for Tyler Kolek, who are they now prepared to bury on the bench again for a second straight year, but that's neither here nor there. The saga continues, though, everybody, so hold right on. They traded Bojan Bogdanovic, the Mikal Bridges trade. They traded Bojan Bogdanovic, Shake Milton, Mahade Diakite, and 5 first-rounders plus a swap to get Mikal Bridges. OG Anunoby, 5 years, $212.5 million with a player option the final year. The best move of the offseason for them, Jalen Brunson, 4 years and $156 million, player option on the final season. Picked up Jericho Sims's team option. They brought back Precious Achiuwa for 1 year, $6 million. They signed campaign a 1 year minimum deal. We did not talk about, though, because it had not happened yet. The Karl Anthony Towns trade. Dante DiVincenzo, first-round pick, and Julius Randle for Karl Anthony Towns. How do you feel about this offseason in hindsight, Grant?
So I came across, I think it was a Seth Partnow chat where I think this is where it was. That really reorganized my thinking specifically about the Knicks because I was ready to go quite a bit lower because I don't love the Cat trade. I think the Anunoby deal might be for too much. They gave up way too much for Bridges. And obviously, the Brunson extension is like unassailable, like maybe the best transaction of last summer potentially. But Seth said something to the effect of, because someone was getting into the idea of like, well, the Knicks don't have their picks anymore. They're inflexible. They have all these big contracts. And he said, like it's not the goal to accumulate cap flexibility and future firsts and whatever else. Like those are the tools that you use to put together a very good roster that can win playoff games. And so as you look at the Knicks, they almost made the finals again. Like so like the Knicks have built that team, and a lot of that construction and retention happened last offseason. So even if we can say the Towns deal, we don't love it. We don't love the Bridges. Even Bridges looks better now that he signed that cheap extension.
But
we don't.
Did you? I know you were away. Did you see the reaction to that at all? There's so many people that thought it was a terrible deal.
They're wrong. That's a great deal because he's going to get way more if he goes to free agency.
I tend to agree, but I was surprised at how many people were just like, no, they paid him. He is slated to be on the first year of that contract between the 51st and 56th highest paid player in the NBA.
Yeah. What are you talking? What are we talking about? Like he's a great two-way start. Great. He's a proven two-way starter on a team that could absolutely make a finals. Like what? Okay.
I really think it's because people can't unmoor his value as the player from what the Knicks gave up to get him.
Don't you think he would have gotten more on the open market in a year than this?
Money? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there would have been a team that would have been 4 years, 200, which was less, at least. That's less than his max. So you ended up giving yourself, you signed him got into him for $50 million less than you would have needed to over 4 years, let's say.
Or lose him for nothing, right? Like,
right.
I mean, you've retained him by definition, I think we both agree that he could get more if he had waited. And that's why if I were him, I probably wouldn't have signed that extension. It's probably pre-agreed to, like you pointed to. But
I think that
by
was
definition,
part of the
he's tradable for positive value. Like if it's true that other teams would have paid him more if given the chance, then that means you can trade him for positive value.
And I'm also shocked that they got him to sign the extension, and he can still be traded technically this season. He has like 5 days before the trade. I would have bet if I was him and was going to sign the extension I'll come talk to you August 6th or later, and like that's when we can put pen to paper.
No, that I'm not willing to listen to any criticism of that extension. I think that's just wrong. But that's all to say. I think we both have a lot of some reservations about how costly some of the players on this roster are that signed last summer. What it costs to get a couple of the guys on this roster. But ultimately, this team is really good. Maybe it's not great, but it's about as good as you can make it and not be a like surefire title favorite. And so I did drop their grade a little bit, but the Brunson deal on its own is just like, you just got like one of the 5 or 6 most productive players in the league for, I don't know, like half of what he probably should be making. So You can't drop the grade too low, or at least I couldn't.
No, I did drop it. I went from, we both gave them Bs the first time around, and I dropped B pluses. I dropped them to a C plus. You dropped them to a B minus. I think the Mikal Bridges extension is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you were going to give up, here's my qualm. I think the Karl-Anthony Towns, the two things that I get hung up on, the value they gave up for Karl-Anthony Towns, I think was fine. If anything, you could say, like, maybe they were the winners of that deal, like, from a talent perspective. But, like, the way Julius Randle played at points this season, if Dante DiVincenzo bounces back, it's a question. My two things are, you traded for a center who might not be able to play center. And that's a lot of money to continue to pay that player to be your part-time or, like, center part-time power forward next to Mitchell Robinson or whoever else you want to throw next to him. My other bigger hang-up is if you were going to – I'm not saying you should have pearl-clutched these first-round picks, and I think that what they did was try to build a team that they could keep together as long as possible within reason. They've done that because what player on Bridges level or higher would have signed the extension that was worth this much? But, like, if you're going to give up that many first-round picks – you can't be at such a half-court shot creation deficit that they were last season.
Yeah.
Like, when you look at, like, the percentile of the half-court shot creation ranks for the Knicks, the fact that they got Jordan Clarkson is going to end up being a godsend, which is problematic. So,
well, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, I think you could attribute some of that to Thibodeau's offense. And, like, maybe under another coach last year, Bridges would have done more of the playmaking like we saw him do in Brooklyn and in Phoenix. Like, you know what I mean? So, first of all, they extended Thibodeau, and that didn't work out because they fired him. And we've talked about, you know, is Mike Brown better? Maybe, maybe not, but he's going to be different. I do think that I'm willing to hold out judgment on the Knicks' dearth of secondary ball handlers and, like, unwillingness to let other people handle the ball. I'm willing to, like, ascribe that to Thibodeau unless it happens again this year. And then it's like, then I think I'd be more on board with what you're saying in terms of, like, roster construction. Does that make sense?
So, yeah. And look, so I think C plus is an above average grade, but I do think that in hindsight, the Jalen Brunson extension is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, because you could say, oh, it's great that Mikal Bridges signed this extension, but the reason that the Knicks are under the second apron right now, the reason that the Knicks are able to sign Gershon Yabusele right now is because Jalen Brunson is on a deal. Like, had he been a free agent this year, Grant, his 4-year max would have been, this summer for 4 years, would have been $207.8 million. His 5-year max, which if you think the Knicks wouldn't have given it to him, I have some news for you, they would have been $269.1 million. And so you can talk about, well, he has the player option at the end of this deal, they're going to pay him then. Are we sure? The way players extend, he might just extend and get another discount. That's doing a ton of the heavy lifting. And look, I do think there's a real conversation to be had about, you set yourself up to be in a weird position. I'm not saying firing Tom Thibodeau was the wrong move. I think Mike Brown is going to do some inventive stuff for their offense. But you extended Tom Thibodeau, which I guess bought you a season of not having people wonder whether he was going to be back or not until after it was over. But, like, what does it say about your internal evaluation about Tom Thibodeau that you extended him and then fired him 1 year later?
Yeah, I think that's fair. It just... that's just fair, because, like, it's not as if Thibodeau coached in a way this past season that was surprising. Like, he just did Thibodeau stuff. Like,
it got really surprising towards the end. They're switching against Boston. Landry
Well,
Shamet's playing in the playoffs.
Too little, too late, though, right? Like, it's you know, if you didn't love Tibbs, I don't think those last handful of games are really going to change your opinion.
The final thing here, and I think they had to give it. I'm fine with it. OG Anunoby had a terrific season. That contract for 5 years just still makes me uneasy because they cannot. I think part of what concerns me about the Knicks right now, but it's about the OG Anunoby extension for this regrade specifically. You can't count on the availability you got from him last year. Like, that is not a year in and year out thing from OG Anunoby. And like, I'm an alarmist. Like, that's a character flaw. But I look at Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart being like the NBA. Mikal Bridges an Iron Man his entire career. Josh Hart being an Iron Man for the past 3 seasons. I look at that as saying, "Fuck, they're due."
Yeah,
like that's how I come at it.
Well, yeah, you're an Iron Man until you're not. I mean, it will stop at some point. They won't play every game for the rest of their careers. But yeah, no, I mean, we're still positive on the Knicks offseason. This is the long and short of it, even though some of it looks a little less rosy than it did.
The Brunson thing, I still struggle to like. I just, the way people are still kind of like, oh yeah, he's just gonna get paid at the end of it. It's just like, He gave up so much money. Like, he basically gave up $12+ million on average a year.
Yeah.
That is he signed an extension that, like, is basically the same as Mikal Bridges is getting right now.
Yeah.
4 and 156 versus 4 and 150. That's insane. Who's our next team, Grant?
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. You said buckle up last time. All right, we've got the Sixers because we got to do it. So this is so funny. Like, even the stuff that's not accounted for here is going to get some conversation. So they draft Jared McCain at number 16. Probably rookie of the year front runner till he got hurt. So we're in, positive territory. 1 for 1.
Should we move on?
Yeah, should we stop? Well, no, yeah, we will. Drafted a Dembona at number 41. There are a we enjoy the stylings of a Dembona. Paul George, oh boy, 4 years, $211.6 million. We loved it at the time. Feel a little different these days. Kelly Oubre, 2 years, $16.4 million. Terrific deal. No notes. Andre Drummond, 2 years, $10 million. No notes. Tyrese Maxey, 5 years, $203 because he agreed to wait. Love it.
No
Eric
option
Gordon,
either.
No option.
They made him wait. He didn't get an option.
Damn, the hits keep coming. Eric Gordon for the minimum. I mean, he can still play, right? Caleb Martin, 4 years, $35 million. We love the Martins. Unrelated. KJ Martin, 2 years, $16 million. Second year is 8.2 something, and that's not guaranteed, right? I don't know is he still on a roster right now?
He's on the Jazz roster for now, yeah.
Kyle Lowry got a year at the minimum. Love it. Veteran experience. Reggie Jackson, 1 year minimum. Why not? Yabusele, 1 year minimum. That one actually did turn out well until it didn't because they didn't bring him back. Signed David Jones and Jeff Downton to 2 ways. Holy shit, man. We A+ this across the board. We loved it. It was phenomenal. What we did not account for in this grade would have been fascinating. I think it would have been lower, but did not account for Joel Embiid's 3-year 193. That's the number I have in my head. I think that's it. $193 million extension. Gotta believe we would have had some reservations about that one at the time. Also, just to keep it all on the up and up, the Yabusele signing had also not happened when we did these
apparently
grades.
it did. I was wrong.
Okay, great.
I looked back, so we did have the Yabu, but that was not what we were probably saying. Okay, cool. Like,
yeah. Oh, you remember him?
They were quartering the market on guys with big cabooses. Like, yeah, really, like
that's
Lowry.
right.
Yeah, that's probably was
Lowry.
our analysis. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in fairness, Yabusele had looked good. I mean, there was a lot of buzz about him, right? Like, he looked good in the Olympics.
I think people even now said, like, well, is his shooting going to hold? And, like, we don't really know, but part of his, like, half decade away from the NBA was, oh, no, he became, like, a real shooter with Real Madrid. Yeah.
And looked, So, this... I don't know where to start with this, really.
Well, so let's start with the thing that we didn't grade at the time. The Embiid was 3 years, $188 million.
188, thank you.
It was adjusted because I think of the cap projections coming in. Here's my thing. We covered the Olympics for Bleacher Report, watching him game in, game out. There were moments, flickers, and we did chalk it up to, he kind of has to ramp up and get to be himself. He never got there, and they gave him the extension anyway, when what would have happened if they didn't? You offer it this summer when he's just had a tackle. Like, we talked about it as, this might be smart, after the fact, it wasn't part of the grade. This might be smart because they got into him for one fewer a year. But I've now come around to the idea that if I find myself saying that, there's a real question as to whether you should be offering the extension if your thought process was, we didn't have to go the extra year out on it.
Yeah, right. Because you shouldn't, at that dollar amount, you shouldn't have trepidation about, like, do we want this to go on for as long as it can? It should be like, oh, God, I hope we can get as many years as possible, right? If you're talking about that level of money. I mean, yes, there is value in shorter deals with, like, balloon payments, but, like, for a player of Embiid's caliber when healthy, it's a red flag. It just is. And I don't know, we haven't really talked about this, but I think it's consensus, and I'm kind of on board that, like, he's never going to be like an all NBA first team guy. And if he is, it'll happen for 30-ish games, and that just isn't going to be sustainable. So, this Embiid's current contract, to me, is one of the most damaging, maybe the most in the league. And Paul George might be a close second unless he has a total turnaround, like in his mid-30s. So, yeah, I mean, we just missed on this. I think we didn't account for George getting hurt, falling off, and we probably overrated. This is a real lesson that we should have known by now. you got to be careful going with like what a steal at the minimum that guy was, because the Sixers had a ton of those and we liked them all. And I think ultimately, like Eric Gordon at the minimum doesn't matter. Like if it's a minimum player with very few exceptions, he's not going to matter. Even if we think actually that guy's worth like $5 million, or you know what I mean? I think maybe that was a factor too.
I just don't know. And it sucks that I'm sure you read that ESPN profile was excellent on him, Joel Embiid. And it's really just soul sundering to read something like that when you look at all the stuff he's had to deal with, what's going through his head, how it feels like he really can't trust anyone. But like just from a basketball perspective right now, I don't know. It was questionable to do that in the moment. And like you could have waited, and now he is the worst contract in the league, especially now that Bradley Beal is a dead cap hit for Phoenix. So it sucks. And I think he'll still look like a first team All NBA player at points. It's like you said, though, it will probably be for 30 games here. And like, are they going to be consecutive games? I have no idea. Will he ever look like that in the playoffs is the bigger thing. The other stuff, I mean, like they were able to get, like they turned Caleb Martin into Quentin Grimes. So it's like that deal looks really bad now, but they were able to turn it into someone who has not signed a new contract yet as we record this, but could be really valuable for them. Drummond deal didn't really work out for them. The Paul George, I don't know what was anyone really saying, oh, why did they sign Paul George? They went the cap space route. So if you're saying they shouldn't have signed Paul George, you wanted them to do, I guess, what? Is how I kind of wrap my head. So it does look bad now. The grade needs to come down, but it's like I'm not out on Paul George. Like he could just be healthier next year, and that could be enough to make the Sixers interesting, especially with, you have, Tyrese Maxey. You have Jared McCain if he's able to stay healthy. Like this team could still be, so VJ Edgecombe could be semi-interesting. The Embiid extension is the one I get hung up on because I almost view as like Paul George, they had no choice because they married themselves to that path. And with Embiid, I'm like, they could have waited and they would still have Joel Embiid on the team.
Right. It really does. All things circle back to Embiid because, I mean, I think I can remember just killing the Clippers for not just bring Paul George back because obviously somebody wants him at that number. It means you can trade him at that number. Like, just do that. But, like, if you have, I'm sure we said, or I said some version of, if you have Joel Embiid, you're sort of, and he was even less removed from his MVP win then than he is now, obviously. You're obligated to just go get the best veteran you can get. And that was Paul George, and they did it. And so, like, yes, for where you are, you're trying to win a title this year, you take the risk of Paul George falling off or falling apart. And the risk just came to bear, which, so to me, I dropped them much lower. We like I said, we both A+ them. I just dropped them to an F because to oversimplify it, they signed 2 agreements last summer. One is the worst in the league. The other is probably in the bottom 5. And what else do you want me to do? Like, if they're ever great again, I don't think it'll be because George and Embiid lead them. It'll be because like Maxey takes a leap and somebody of the Edgecombe, Grimes, McCain group becomes an all. You know what I mean? Like, I think the deals they signed are just like potentially crippling. So I hadn't done an F yet, so I thought I should. Is the other part.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, like, to get Maxey back and not have to give him a player option when you made him wait to restricted free agency, I thought was like a good win. The Gershon Yabusele contract, now you could say they didn't get a team option on that, and they ended up losing him. They had to replace him with Trendon Watford, who still, I thought that was a pretty good pickup for them. I think you can go as low. I think you can look at this and just say what you did, is that they have 2 of the 5 worst contracts on the books in the league, and at least one of them was like something they didn't need to do, even with operating inside their whole like cap space plan or immediacy plan.
Yeah.
So I totally get it. That's not part of the regrade, but I also do think, but the Jared McCain pick, I know he got injured, but holy shit.
It probably shouldn't be an F. I could be talked into a D- because you're right. McCain, Maxey, good moves. Bonus, good move.
That's damning with like the
faintest
praise.
I'm gonna leave it there though.
We're on to the Toronto Raptors, who I like. Just in retrospect, it just feels like a very nothing burger of an offseason, aside from the Scotty Barnes extension. We will go through it anyway, though, because that's what we do. And am I stalling just so I could timestamp this and don't forget? Who's to say? They drafted Jacoby Walter at number 19. They drafted Jonathan Mobo at number 31. fun fact, Grant, I'm in love with him, and I want them to free him because they have too many non-spacing bigs. They traded $1 million for Ulrich Shamshay at number 57. I very much like that. Traded Jalen McDaniels for Davion Mitchell, Sasha Vezenkov, Jamal Shed, who was the number 45 pick in Portland's 2025 second-round pick. Signed Emmanuel quickly for 5 years, $162.5 million. Scotty Barnes, 5-year max. Bruce Brown, they picked up his team option. Garrett Temple, he's going to get a statue. What else is there to say? He was on a 1-year minimum. They had Bruno Fernando at a 1-year minimum at the time. They had Brandon Carlson on a 2-way, and they are responsible for letting him get to the Oklahoma City Thunder, so they get an F. We were, like, I actually think that it kind of makes sense to, so we both gave them, we've been revealing it at the end, but, like, we had both given them, I gave them a C-, you gave them a C at the time. How are you feeling about this now?
So, obviously, the rookies, I don't see Jamal Shed anywhere here. They ended up with him.
He was Jamal Shed was part of the Jalen McDaniels,
right.
Davion Mitchell trade.
So I kind of liked their rookie. I liked Mobo. I thought Walter, who knows, but he showed a few things, and then Shed was interesting, and like Jamison Battle, like I don't know how they ended up with him, but he made 1 million threes. So that wouldn't have been a factor because I couldn't possibly have had opinions on how much I liked those guys prior to seeing them last year.
Oh, no, you had strong opinions on Jamison Battle.
I'm sure, yeah. I just don't know where he came from. So I could definitely see this moving up based on those guys, except for the fact that don't love the Quickly deal. It's funny to me that the Quickly deal is the one that's like mentioned by everybody that's looking for more money in free agency. Like, well, this fucking guy, look at Quickly got 162.
Do you think that Jakob Poeltl is going to be the one that gets mentioned too when the centers are looking for money?
You don't want to corner the market of free agent extensions and free agent deals that other players' agents point to as like, come on, you got to at least get me up to Poeltl money. Like, that's not what you want as Toronto. And then the Barnes deal, I wish I could remember exactly what I thought about it. I bet I felt better about it than Wagner's deal, but I could imagine, and no player option similarly, but I could imagine kind of being like, did we need to go all the way on that? So what did we have last year? You had, interesting. I was higher than you on it. C- for you, C for me. Well, I don't want to jump. Do you have thoughts before we jump to what our regrades are?
I think I get hung up on to like when I like Jamal Shed, I like Mobo, I like Jacoby Walter. I'm fine on, like he's got some really just like on ball jiggle and joggle, but I'm just wondering, like, did they? It doesn't seem, and it felt this way at the time, unless maybe part of this is because Quickly ended up playing so little again. But, like, there's a lack of coherence to what they're doing here, where they might have a bunch of intriguing players, but have they put even Scotty Barnes? I'm fine with the 5-year max still for him. I actually don't. Like, I think that's a net neutral deal at this moment, and if he was eligible for it now, I might still give it to him. But, like, Jonathan Mobo is a good example. It's like, that's a really interesting player to have. You keep, like, the context of your roster makes no sense for a lot of the guys that you have, and it's continued with Colin Murray-Boyles now being on the team. So, and the Quickly deal, you've already mentioned this, but that wasn't one. We know what restricted free agency, it's not just was this offseason, what it has been for years at this point. And I know that you you treated him as kind of this crown jewel in the OG Anunoby trade, but like you couldn't negotiate it a little bit harder. It's a flat rate, so it'll be worth 16% of the salary cap by the end of it. I don't know, man. I just feel like they could have negotiated harder on that, and he could still be really good. He's arguably like one of their 2 or 3 most important players because of how he can open up the floor for everybody else. But I came out of this feeling not as good about the offseason, even though it's just like, what's the one move you point to and say, oh, they effed up? And I don't know that you could say they effed up majorly in any one area for sure.
I think that's right. So you went from C- to D+. I went from C to C-. So just like some minor, we knocked it down a little bit there. I do think you raise a good point with Quickly. And I wonder if, like, tell me do you think it's fair to look at almost any deal that was signed last summer? And Quickly's a good example because it's like we're hemming and hawing and kind of maybe think that's an overpay to criticize deals like that. Because it's like sometimes you can't say, well, like, you know, who just sometimes you can say, Well, we know what next summer is going to look like, and there's not money out there. Like, imagine if Quickly's a restricted free agent this summer. Like, he's probably still unsigned, and we're talking about like 3-year deals for $60 million or whatever it is, right? Like, there's or like even Barnes, it's like, okay, if you don't 5-year no options max him, what's he going to get this year? Like, I do think the landscape was clear enough. I'm trying to put a finer point on this. I know I'm rambling. I think teams should have known enough about what free agency was going to look like and about how much cap space would be available this summer to have been playing some much harder hardball a year ago. Because, like, if you don't extend Quickly, oh my God, he's going to be so pissed and like, this isn't going to work out. And it's just like, yeah, but he's going to get into free agency and there's not going to be any money. So we're going to get him for, you know what I mean? Like, I do think it's maybe fair to criticize teams that jumped the gun and maybe overpaid a little bit, because everybody should have known that this summer was just not going to be like a cash-rich environment for potential free agents.
Right, and it's also just, even look at, I don't want to keep bringing them up, but like the Rockets were able to negotiate with Alper and Şengün, but you couldn't negotiate harder with Emmanuel Quickly, and they were able to negotiate with Jabari Smith Jr. this past summer, but you weren't able to negotiate with Emmanuel Quickly. Is it, and I hate saying this, but is there sort of a Toronto tax here where they're really just worried guys would leave for less money?
Well,
I just make someone give you an offer sheet or sign the qualifying offer, but like, I'll dare them to do it then if that was the feeling. And there's a chance, I think Quickly could end up being worth this deal, but a season of it was already burned. So it's already just underwater because like he didn't live up to that price point. And look, I don't think you could say that I feel the same about Scotty Barnes' deal, where I still would have given it to him, but you can't sit here and say, like, Scotty Barnes had the type of season that made me feel like he's just going to be perfect and this deal is going to end up making so much sense. We can say that about Cade. We can say that about Evan Mobley. I'm still super high on Scotty Barnes. I'm actually super intrigued by this Raptors team, but there is a level of, if I don't want to say, if it's not a lack of coherence, they've definitely just like kind of hidden what they're trying to do from us, like what the overarching plan is.
To what end? Like, what? It's hard to say why.
Grant, I made a mistake, and it took someone an entire year to find it. Rome says, minor quibble, didn't Orlando immediately trade Antonio Reeves to the Pelicans on draft night? I double-checked that, or I should have double-checked that. Rome is correct, so thanks for pointing that out there. Luckily, Antonio Reeves did not factor heavily into the grade or the regrade of the Orlando Magic.
The only thing I remember about Antonio Reeves is he had a 30-something point game, I think, for New Orleans, and I was grading rookie classes last year, and I was very annoyed because, like, God, I got to talk about this guy now. Like, what?
My question, speaking of the Pelicans, what's the over/under the number of triple doubles that Elfrid Payton ends up having for the Pelicans by the end of next season?
7.5, I'd say.
7.5. We get to leave final division, Grant. We're moving at like a blistering pace by our standards. By
Pretty
the way.
good. Oh, here we go. Oh, do I get this one? I'm going to take this one. I don't care what
it is
say.
yours, so you can have it.
We're on to the Chicago Bulls, who you may recall traded Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey, and that's it. Drafted Modest Buzelis at number 11. That's somebody else's bit, but I think it's a funny one. Patrick Williams got 5 years, $90 million. Got a player option on it too, because you got to give Patrick Williams a player option. Jalen Smith, 3 years, $27 million. They signed and traded DeMar DeRozan to the Kings for Chris Duarte, a 25 second-round pick, a 28 second-round pick, and Raekwon Gray. Signed Adama Sanogo and DJ Stewart to two-ways. We didn't love this last summer.
F's across the board, right? Oh, no, I went F minus.
You F minus it. Respect it. Much respect. I just went with a conventional F. Boy, we had a lot of Fs, actually. There's a few in the West. Teaser.
One of them is going to be reversed, right?
Yes.
I believe.
The one I'm looking at right now is going to definitely be reversed. It might go all the way to an A, to be honest. But we're talking about the Bulls. So everybody hated Giddey for Caruso. Kind of looks, well, tell me, what do you think, since Giddey obviously unsigned, still in restricted free agency, is there room for this to be a positive trade for the Bulls if Giddey comes back?
No.
You didn't even know what I was going to say.
Go ahead.
What if he agrees to pay the Bulls $20 million a year to be on the team?
I think so. You're going to go something along the lines of, what if he just comes back on a deal that we deem ultra reasonable? Is like, congratulations, you decided to trade someone who at one point, and I don't want to hear this from any commenters who claim to have sources, you could at one point have gotten 2 first-round picks for him, and you decided to trade that for ultra reasonable. Awesome. Like that's the problem here. I think now I think the Bulls are playing the Josh Giddey negotiations correctly. And he had, by his standards, a fine season. What is your end game with Josh Giddey? And you've now put yourself in this weird position to where whatever you pay Josh Giddey is going to factor into Kobe White's future, who is the better player, and you probably should trade him. But if you're not, are you going to pay these dudes like a combined $60 million a year moving forward to be your backcourt, and where is that getting you? So my grade for the Bulls, spoiler, it's going to go up because I ended up liking the Jalen Smith deal. I thought ended up being pretty good for them. I love Modest Buzelis.
That's it for me.
But there's no case you can make where the Josh Giddey trade makes sense now. And if anything, the fact that they feel the need to negotiate him and squeeze him kind of just reinforces our point, because they're not looking at him saying, that's like a top 20 player, but we're going to try and squeeze him because the market has dried up. No,
we're not sure he's good.
That's exactly what you could say. Well, they dodged a bullet with the Alex Caruso extension. No, you could have traded, and maybe he couldn't have gotten you 2 first-round picks last summer. I think he could have. He could have gotten you 2 first-round picks at some point, and this is not with the benefit of hindsight where it's, well, we couldn't have known the Bulls needed. Yes, we could have. We knew they needed to trade him for years. So again, Josh Giddey had a better season than I expected, especially when it came to shooting the ball. But as someone, if you're looking at him for rim pressure, drawing fouls, defensively, he's basically like I won't even call him a 4, but we need to put him on like the slowest footed perimeter player out there and hope that a team has said player for that to work. It was a bad trade for them, and I don't think it doesn't look any worse now. Is that a compliment?
Yeah, we hated it then. It's not any different. I mean, so it's the Caruso trade, hate it. The Patrick Williams deal, I mean, like, it's a different brand of bad, but it might be equally bad, right? Like, it's a different type of transaction. It's just
it's worse.
Hey, just chop in whatever we said last summer about it, because nothing has changed. Which is just like, who was competing, who was going to go to 90, who was offering a player option that you needed. It's all the same. Like, they're just now look.
Jalen Williams didn't even get a player option. Jalen Williams.
In the grand scheme of things, $90 million over 5 years is actually not like you're not crippled because of this deal. It's just that, like, if I don't know, somebody put together a formula that weighs Patrick Williams' on-court contributions and assigns a dollar value to those over 5 years. Is it $30 million? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're just talking about like what he produces for you on the court, it's just, this is a terrible deal, and it's made worse by the fact that absolutely nobody was going this many years or dollars, right? Like, we don't know that, but it's like, who would have? It's as bad, I think, as the Caruso Giddey trade. It's just kind of different.
I think you can make it worse. Say it's worse. Well, I guess you could say Patrick Williams might have had upside too, but at least you didn't. Like, you're the team that's supposed to have the most information on Patrick Williams in this scenario, and you were negotiating against yourself. And like, if the biggest defense is like, yeah, he's only on the books for 8-something% of the salary cap in the final year as a player option, he's probably going to pick up that player option. Like, that's not a win. So yeah, this was still kind of a bad offseason for them. And like the DeMar DeRozan trade. Like, you didn't even get the best asset involved in that deal.
Yeah. San Antonio got it, right? That was the pick ended up going there.
And you know what they did? They got the best asset in the Zach LaVine trade, too. Like, even though they were the team that was giving up assets. Because
So it's just to put a bow on it. You said F-, I said F. You've vaulted all the way up to a D-, and I've joined you there. And for me, it's Buzelis. It was like a really exciting rookie, and I think it's probably more than you have a right to expect out of a number 11 pick in a bad draft. So really, that's the only. Jalen Smith is sure, but like, it's really just Buzelis was better than I expected, and that's the only reason the Bulls get out of the F range.
I think part of my logic here too was, I guess the Josh Giddey trade might look a touch better just because he played better than I expected, but it's still just not one that I don't know what's the highest end out. Like, how does that trade? Is there a scenario that he does? Like, what would he have to do on the court as a player? What would he need to develop for it to be that trade to be considered a W for them?
I mean, it's an unfair answer, but he would have to prove that he could, like, drive winning. Like, he would have to actually prove that, like, all of the flaws we fixate on don't prevent him from being a net positive player on a good team. Like, that's just, I don't know, and like it's just weighed against 2 first-round picks. I don't know if there's anything realistically he could do that would 2 years from now we'd both have to sit here and say, hey, you know what, we were wrong. Turns out that was a better return than 2 firsts for Alex Caruso.
We move on to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and their moves were that we graded. They fired J.B. Bickerstaff. They hired Kenny Atkinson as their head coach to replace him. They drafted Jalen Tyson at number 20. They signed Donovan Mitchell to a 3-year, $150 million extension, player option on the final season. They extended Evan Mobley, got the 5-year max. Jared Allen, 3 years, $90.7. That was an extension that took us fully guaranteed 3 years, $90.7 million. That took us by surprise. Because I was like, oh, we have in the notes here Isaac Okoro, what the fuck? Because it was taking forever for them to sign him. He ended up signing a 3-year, $33 million deal that they then turned into Lonzo Ball. It's like, in fact, that's like good work by the Cavs there. I don't want to say we were neutral. We gave them each, I think, a B+. I gave them a B. You gave them a B+. If anything, I don't know how you look back on that offseason and think, oh, yeah, I feel worse about it.
No, yeah, I think if your concerns with the Cavs at the moment, I guess, are that like, oh, the 2 small guards just may never work. It puts a conference finals or whatever ceiling on your upside as a team. I don't know if that's actually true. I just think so. I moved the grade up. You're correct. You had him at a B. I had him at a B+. I went to an A-. You went to an A. Atkinson's an upgrade over Bickerstaff, although Bickerstaff, we're going to talk about him momentarily when we get to the Pistons, landed on his feet. The Mobley deal, yes, you do that. No question asked there. The Allen deal, maybe you look at it skeptically. I don't know. There's an embargo on us discussing Jared Allen contracts for obvious reasons because we're never right about them.
Has enough time passed for us to discuss that one? No. Do you feel any differently about the Mobley deal because he wins Defensive Player of the Year and now it's the rookie 30% max, excuse me, rather than the fun max?
I feel like that and whenever that happens, I think you're happy about it as the team. I think so. Yeah, it certainly doesn't make me feel worse that like, oh no, they have to pay him a few million more.
I was just curious where and the fact that he improved offensively, I think, is a big deal there too.
Yeah, I think if there weren't limits on what you could pay on extensions, he would have deserved more probably. Great offseason for the Cavs. Not really anything else to add to that unless you have something.
No, that was last offseason was the one where everyone was calling for them to like bust it up too. And that feels like forever ago, but I think you and I predicted, we set the over under at 0.5 of all 4 coming back. And you and I both took being traded, and we both took the over at 0.5.
For sure. Well, the Athletic article that came out like right after they were eliminated and called Jared Allen soft and Darius Garland wants to explore options is like, what else? What other conclusions were we going to draw?
I don't know. You know what? Shams was still at the Athletic at that point. He was he was working off the rust. He was getting ready for ESPN, and so he's out. He dumped all the stuff. Yeah, that wouldn't come true. The Detroit Pistons. You want to take us through them?
Yep, they fired Monty Williams and hired the aforementioned JB Bickerstaff. Got a 5-year deal there. Probably most importantly, JB Bickerstaff wanted that job, so he was an upgrade over Monty Williams, who did not want it.
Didn't want did he even want a job, or was it just the Pistons? I'm curious.
I would do a lot of jobs I didn't want to do for, what did he get, $9 million a year? Which he's still getting, so good for him. Drafted Ron Holland at number 5. Got Tobias Harris in free agency for 2 years and $52 million. Cade Cunningham got his 5-year rookie max. Has the Supermax qualifiers on there. Did he make All NBA? I can't even remember.
He did.
Now. So he's got that 5 for 269 instead of 224. Those are probably a little off. I don't know what the cap's doing. They traded Quentin Grimes for Tim Hardaway Jr., a 25 second from Toronto, a 2028 second from Miami, and a 28 second from the Clippers or Charlotte. They traded Cam Spencer, number 51, for Wendell Moore Jr. and Bobby Clintman, number 37. Got Malik Beasley for 1 year and $6 million. That's a pretty good deal for a 1 year. Simone Fontecchio got 2 years, $16 million. Paul Reed, they claimed off waivers. Dan, let's look down here. We both were like pretty meh about the Pistons offseason. I think we both feel quite a bit better about it. What's the best move they made?
The best move?
In hindsight.
Man, is it? I mean, probably just extending Cade Cunningham, but it probably would be, just because was he ever not going to extend with them, would be hiring JB Bickerstaff, right?
I think it's one of those two. And like the Cunningham one, I think was just that was going to happen. There wasn't any. I can't remember what we talked about. I don't think there was any like hemming and hawing over. Oh, is he worth it? I think it was
From us, no, but it was a pretty divisive topic. I think in NBA circles in general. But he kind of answered the bell on that one 10 times over.
I gotta believe I wasn't in love with the Bickerstaff hire because I kind of just viewed him as like he's the 20th to 25th best coach in the league. Like, what difference is he possibly going to make? Turns out a lot when the baseline is as low as it was under Williams. So yeah, that in some ways that's an easy hire. It's a retread. You probably didn't have to pay him that much. But in other ways, like maybe it's kind of inspired because he very much seemed like the exact right coach for the phase of development that the Pistons found themselves in last year. So, and I think we both like Ron Holland. I don't know if you're redrafting, if you knock him down a spot or move him up, but 5, a totally defensible pick, I think, to take him at 5. Harris is fine, $26 million a year on average. And then obviously the results were what they were. Like the Pistons won 3 times as many games as they did the year before.
Yeah, I think we did quibble over like what Quentin Grimes got them. Like they got, it felt like even in time they took on the worst player and just weren't compensated enough. And then the other thing too, this is very small at the moment, but I really like Cam Spencer and the fact that like Bobby Klintman doesn't seem like he's gonna and I liked him, doesn't feel like he's gonna factor in. Makes me a little bit. I have some trepidation there, but that's. Again, you're hemming and hawing. The Simone Fontecchio deal did not turn out to be as good as we expected. He kind of fell off the face of the earth for them. But the Malik Beasley deal, regardless of what he has going on off the court and is currently unsigned, that ended up being like the second year running, he was one of the best contracts like on a per dollar basis in the NBA.
Yeah, he was at times, obviously Cunningham's their most important offensive player, but like there were a lot of stretches where Beasley was number 2. Like in terms of like how important are you to making this offense work? So yeah, $6 million for him is phenomenal. So you started at a C+ last year. I gave him a C. We've both moved him to B+. Hard to argue with the results. Like most of their big swings and small ones, like basically worked out, and the Fontecchio level transactions certainly didn't hurt them. So yeah, just a really stellar offseason for them in hindsight.
My spoiler alert is I don't mind their offseason this summer as much as a lot of other people seem to do. I think they rebounded nicely in the face of some drama. But we move on to the Indiana Pacers. They, Grant, drafted Tristan Newton at number 49, drafted Enrique Freeman at number 50, traded Juan Nunez, number 36, in cash for Johnny Furphy, who was number 35, paid Pascal Siakam 4 years, $189.9 million. That was the max. Gave Obi Toppin 4 years, $58 million. We didn't love that deal. Andrew Nembhard got a 3-year, $58.7 million extension. James Wiseman, 2 years, $4.8 million. Only $500,000 was guaranteed. They had a team option in the second year. James Johnson, 1 year at the minimum. Quentin Jackson was on a 2-way. We were not fans of the Pacers offseason. We actually, the thing we had the least problem with and even supported while everybody else didn't necessarily seem to love it was the Siakam max. We also did not grade the TJ McConnell extension, 4 years, 45. Only part of that is guaranteed. But we both gave them across the board D+. We were pretty. And can you guess? I did listen back. Can you guess what our biggest gripe was?
I gotta believe mine was Toppin. I gotta believe I just hated that, and turned out I think I'm pretty clearly wrong about him, or at least it looked that way last year.
So
was that it? Was it Toppin for me? I can't remember.
Yes, and then it was the two things we talked about were the Toppin deal, and then it was kind of the Orlando Magic argument of you had all this evidence of what you needed most and proceeded to go out and not get that, and we didn't call their playoff run a fluke at that time, but it was you clearly needed another combo wing type here, and you had the flexibility again to go do things, and you did absolutely nothing. And the Obi Toppin deal it does look better in hindsight because he was really impactful for them at points this season, including during the NBA Finals. But it's also that's still not a contract that teams are going to be beating down the door to take on, I don't think. And the other thing too is I had criticized John Hollinger for saying this at the time, and it turns out I was wrong. The Andrew Nembhard extension, doing that a year before you had to, probably ended up costing you Miles Turner.
Okay, let's unpack that because I've heard him. I'm aware that that's his take too. Not his take, like that like makes it seem like it's not factually true that like the money worked out the way it did. But isn't the counter that if you had not signed Nembhard to that deal last year, you would have had to pay him much more now? But I guess that doesn't matter in terms of like you'd have
It
bird
wouldn't have
rights or
kicked
whatever.
in though until
Yeah,
2027, 2020, or excuse me, 26, 27, because it was he had the 2 years at the lower volume left on his deal, right? So I'm assuming that's his argument. But you could also then say, well, Tyrese Halliburton's injured. What does it matter? I've seen the numbers with Miles Turner, without Tyrese Halliburton offensively, the shooting splits. I get it. Bad asset management, but it's something to think about. I think Andrew Nembhard I guess it comes down to, would you rather have Miles Turner still here or Andrew Nembhard on this deal versus what you think it would have cost to retain him if you didn't have him on this contract?
It's hard to answer that without knowing what Nembhard would get, right? Like, I mean, does Nembhard get, well, again, because we're negotiating this summer, right? And it's not like, well, no, because we're still talking about an extension. It's not like he would have been an unrestricted free agent and the argument of like, well, nobody has any money, so you can lowball him. Like, that's not the situation it would have been, right?
No, it wouldn't have been.
So, yeah, I guess that's compelling. I kind of dismissed that idea as like, well, I think Nembhard's on a great deal. Like, you just do that because he's a really good player being paid under market. But I guess if the trickle down is you lose Turner, although they didn't have to lose Turner, right? Like they could have. That's the hang up is that
I think what I just struggle with is there's clearly always been I don't even know if it's a disconnect, but they have never valued him as much as I feel like people think that they need to value him. And I still look at yes, you could cite the shooting splits. You could say he played poorly in the finals. Okay, like you needed to get to a point to be in the finals. He was a huge part of that. But players who do what he does are so rare.
There's
and
like
I don't
four of them. If that.
Right. And I've just seen I like Jay Huff, but I've just seen too much of just like, oh, they might not even feel it. Like Jay Huff is there. I'm just, like, no, I don't. Maybe we'll be doing this time when we do their offseason grades for this year. We're going to be coming back next year. Like, wow, like Miles Turner had the worst season of his career. But
right. Who knew Obi Toppin could play center?
Right. Obi Toppin, all defense. My God.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, Turner's. I guess except for how Nembhard does relate to Turner, the Turner thing isn't really relevant to last summer. I was just wrong about Toppin, I think, and so I have to bump him from a D+ to a C+. You went to a C. Similar logic, I assume. Like just the things we disliked, we were just not right about. I mean, the part of it is like, okay, I didn't know the Pacers were going to reinvent how offensive basketball worked. So like, sorry, but like, I don't know how you factor that in if you do at all.
Well, it's also, they came off this like trip deep into the playoffs and we're like, oh, we didn't tell them to do something reckless, but it was like, you needed to do more to make sure you got back to that point. And it looked like we were right basically through Thanksgiving or whatever it was. Yeah. But then Andrew Nembhard comes back and they're like, these guys are just humming at both ends of the floor. So we were clearly wrong about our assessment of them as a team, but I don't know how you look back at last offseason and think I guess it's just, we kept Andrew Nembhard and Pascal Siakam, and that ends up being a huge deal, and the Obi Toppin contract looks better than expected. I don't think you didn't get a steal on it. Like, Pascal Siakam got the max. I think that's people thought it was a bad deal. I think it's a fine deal, but Obi Toppin's not a steal.
No, that's true.
And Andrew Nembhard at his... I was going to say, Nembhard a steal at his price.
I would not have liked the McConnell deal had we graded it last year. I would have been like, what do you need him for? You have Nembhard and Halliburton. Like that. It's not that. It's just like, why are you investing 8 figures in a third or fourth guard? That makes no sense. And
little did you know he's the best ISO scorer of all time.
Would have been wrong about that too.
Are you ready to take us through the Milwaukee Bucks?
Absolutely. They drafted A.J. Johnson at number 23. I remember hating that. They drafted Tyler Smith at 33, got DeLon Wright, Taurean Prince, and Gary Trent Jr., all for minimums. They signed Stanley Umude to a two-way and Anzej Pasechniks to a two-way as well. So relatively uneventful, and yet we loved it. It's just, this is a classic case of we just love the minimums, basically, right?
Well,
you had them.
They
couldn't do anything.
Right. And it was do you want a short circuit? Do we want to see them trade like anything to do something ridiculous? No, we didn't want to see them do that. So it was, they came in with no flexibility, no money to spend, and they left with Prince and Gary Trent Jr. were the names that we harped on the most. You got those guys at the minimum. And by the way, those deals look better now because we'll see if it costs them when they have their early bird rights, but you were able to convince them to stay, which I think is a pretty big deal without having a ton of flexibility.
Yeah. So we had them at, you had them at a B+. I had them at an A-. We just love those minimums. You stayed at a B+. I dropped to a B+, just because, I don't know, ultimately, I don't have a great reason. Feels like A is just too high when the only thing they did was sign minimums.
Well, the other thing, too, is just I think you could look back and kind of say, were there other opportunities for them in the draft to make other than, like, Tyler Smith at
Johnson's not even on the team anymore. They traded him to
They used
Washington?
him as part of the dump for it wasn't a
Middleton?
dump. They traded Chris Middleton to get Kyle Kuzma. Is there anyone that man? Imagine AJ Mitchell instead of Tyler Smith on this. Like it's when you get to the second round, it's kind of splitting hairs. I wasn't when you even look at the first round an AJ Johnson guy to begin with, and it's not that there's been a few players drafted after him that were better, but Keyshawn George, people knew about him at the time. Terrence Shannon Jr. might have been fantastic. Ryan Dunn would have been a pretty good pick for them. So you could, if you wanted to, demerit them for that. But we have so little information on AJ Johnson. And even if he ends up being good, that move is not part of it. Them getting rid of him isn't part of their offseason grade. That would be part of their trade deadline happenings grade.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fine offseason for the Bucks. This offseason is going to be way more interesting to grade. Grants, do you have anything else to add on this
exercise? Do it? Oh, man. Good job by us. No, I don't have anything else to add. I think, let's see. Well, maybe by way of recap, now that would be too complicated. Who's the biggest swing? Obviously, was the Sixers. We went from the A range to the F range. Trying to see if anybody else really made huge jumps. I guess
the Hawks, I think for me, might have had the biggest upswing. I went from a C- to an A-.
Yeah, I bumped them up quite a bit too. I don't know. I think. You feel like we learned anything? What are your takeaways? What are you going to take into your next set of off-season grades from this process?
Absolutely nothing.
We don't learn here. We're not here to learn. It's like that was the pitch from wasn't that the way Larry David explained how Seinfeld at the show was going to work? It's like nobody's ever allowed to learn anything from what they do wrong. That's why it's funny.
If we've accomplished you learning absolutely nothing, we've done our jobs.
We did it. Hope you learned nothing. Hope you still listen though, and if you do, rate, review, and subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave us a comment there. If you watch this live, thanks. We're going to try a few more of these and just kind of see how they go. What else do I need to say, Dan? It's been 2 weeks since I
The West, we'll have the West, I think, same
yeah.
time next week. We're planning 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 on Friday p.m. Eastern time. Oh, my God, that was next Friday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. We will do the West regrades, and there's a couple of interesting teams that to talk about there.
We might have to. We've used this for other things, but we might have to title that one "We're Wrong and We're Sorry" for a couple of very.
I'm not sorry about this at all.
Well, we're just wrong. That's right. No learning, no apologies. Maybe that should be the new tagline for the show. Thanks again, everybody. I think that's all. Shouts Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.